Welcome to Game On Sports Center, coming at you from the Fan Cave. We have a lot of fun segments, a lot of football to break down here today. I'm your host, Jeremy Beadling. I just want to introduce a couple of, the Game On crew here. Morgan.
I'm Morgan Alexander. I am not from Texas. I am from upstate New York, and I'm a former Division I lacrosse player from Syracuse University, so I'm excited to be here today to kind of give you my input on some football stuff.
Yeah. And we got Trace Gerard, the, prize son of Melissa football here.
Yeah, my mother is the Buddy Garrity of Melissa High School sports, so shout out to you, Mama. But hey, guys, my name's Trace. Grew up in Texas. Dang proud of it. Love me some Texas high school football.
And we got the brains of the operation here. The man who's got all of Texas high school football up in that cranium, up in that dome. We got my main man, Matthew Bryce. Tell him a little bit about yourself, Matthew.
Good evening, everyone. Matthew Bryce here. I do have a very big brain. This is why I have a big head. Thank y'all for having me. Thank y'all for tuning in. We just came here to talk football and entertain ourselves with you all.
So let's kick it off with our very first segment of the day in the Game On Fan Cave, Chasing Champions. Who could win the state champion this year? I know, Morgan, you've come up with some interesting notes on some of the teams here in the state of Texas. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I think everyone's already thinking South Oak Cliff, right? They're the ones that are going to win. They played phenomenal last year. They're a very solid, disciplined team. But I think we can't count Melissa and Lovejoy out. I think the hardest battle is going to be either one of them getting through South Oak Cliff to get to that championship game. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those scenarios where it's like, will the discipline of South Oak Cliff prevail amongst a Lovejoy team that maybe isn't so disciplined? And I think that that's something you have to look at. But honestly, right now, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to come right up to the final game to figure it out.
I mean, kind of like last year, we were just talking about it. Lovejoy against South Oak Cliff, Globe Life Field, where the Rangers will be playing in the World Series. I mean, you saw that matchup last year. Now going on to this year, some of the same kind of cats in the fight. What are your thoughts on that?
Second round matchup, that's when that matchup happened last year, Jeremy. Now, a lot of that is going to be determined here next week when Lovejoy plays Melissa for the district title.
Yeah.
Now, if Lovejoy gets revenge this year and pulls it out, then you're talking about Lovejoy not matching up with South Oak Cliff until the fourth round. Melissa would get them in the second round in that instance. Now, if it's the same as last year and Melissa's victorious over Lovejoy, Melissa wouldn't see South Oak Cliff until the fourth round, which is where Lovejoy would see them in the second round again.
And I know you had we've been talking about this matchup a little bit prior. You had been saying you don't know how Lovejoy stacks up with these teams on defense. I know they have a high-profile commit at linebacker, but you were kind of saying, as the millennials would say, mid the rest of the defense. What do you think?
Well, I think it's just that, right? You're not going to win a game if your offense is putting up 60 points a game, but your defense can't stop anything. With a team like Melissa that has put up numbers every single game, you have to have a defense. And I think having one linebacker that's holding down that entire defense, it's only going to take you so far. And like I said, the lack of discipline, they've had so many penalties, and it was their issue last year, right? You cannot play defense like that and want to make it to the championship. You'll win games. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
You'll win lots of games. But that's the difference maker in a championship winning team. Is do you have a fundamentally sound defense that can prevail you to that championship game? And I just don't think Lovejoy has.
And I mean, talking about defense, Trace, I know Melissa Red runs through your blood.
Yeah.
You had a brother through the program. Your mom heavily involved with the Melissa program. What do you think about this Melissa defense and how they stack up? Because every game that I've seen, they've been pretty dominant.
Yeah, well, first of all, like you said, shout out to my mom, the Buddy Garrity, and Melissa. I do find this interesting. So Lovejoy's offense this season is averaging 47.5 points. Then they're scoring 47.5.
That's a pretty high number.
Meanwhile, their defense is only allowing 16.0 points per game. Their defense, the most that they let up was in that loss to North Crowley. And they allowed 43 points. Very good program, like you're saying. And the lowest, they've actually pitched 2 shutouts against Princeton and Crandall, which were back-to-back games. And you were talking about the Melissa matchup. I mean, Melissa's averaging just under 53 points per game, 52.9 to be exact. And their defense is allowing 18.1. So the matchup like y'all are saying, offensively and defensively is just really good.
Well, I think you have to look at it that way too. You know, Princeton hasn't won that many games, so that's not, to me, that's not impressive. That's not raising my eyebrows that they've shut out teams like that. Okay, whoop-de-doo. That's not going to help you against South Oak Cliff. You know what I'm saying? So I think Melissa will be. It's a test for them, right? It's a test. Can you play with them? I think on paper, on stats, they're hand in hand. But are they together and then South Oak Cliff is here? That's what we might find out.
So, Matthew, I know you probably know South Oak Cliff better than the three of us combined, close to the program. You know, you've been following them for the past couple of years. They lost a couple big boys up front, one huge guy up front. They got a couple big guys back. And I know a lot of the wins and losses, especially playoff time, it's in the trenches. So how do you think they match up against a Melissa, up against the Lovejoy in the trenches? Because I know Melissa's got some big boys as well.
And see, Jeremy, you actually took the conversation somewhere where I wanted to go.
South Oak Cliff. I'm doing my job right.
South Oak Cliff has turned into a school that plays great football in the trenches. They're not just a school that relies on the athletes, the athleticism, the speed. No, they play football in the trenches on both sides of the football. That's what Coach Jason Todd has built within the program. Now, Melissa, I feel like if anyone is going to knock out South Oak Cliff in 5A D2, it's going to be Melissa if they can match them physical for physical, player for player in the trenches. And that's on both sides of the football.
Yeah.
That's where I question Lovejoy. And that's where Melissa beat Lovejoy last year. That's where South Oak Cliff got them last year, too. Melissa is a very, very physical football team on both sides of the football, that front seven and the offensive line. So that's where I feel that's going to be decided. Melissa, they will have to match them up front. Lovejoy will have to do the same thing, but I feel like Melissa has a better chance than Lovejoy does.
Kind of switching it to a different kind of team, a different kind of subsect of teams. Do you think HP can make a run this year? I know they lost a ton of people last year. Their path isn't as easy as it has been in the past. We were talking about if they win out, it might be an Arlington at home in the first round, but can they get past the second? Can they get past the third round? We were talking about kind of the mashup of that whole division. Lake Highlands sitting at the top. You know, they're going to have to face tough teams like a McKinney, like some other bigger teams in that division. What do you see for Highland Park and just any team in that division, and who are the major contenders?
Highland Park, more than likely, they're going to be 6A D2 in Region 2. Now, getting out of the first round, if it's Arlington High, which they would have to win out in order to get that matchup at home at Hollander, they would have to get by them. But then the second round, you taking a chance of seeing Denton Geyer again, or it's going to be a really tough McKinney High team, a very physical McKinney High team.
Yeah. Just to put it lightly, they're going to have to step up their game. They're going to have to, take it to the next level on that front. And don't want to leave out, the third team that we cover as a network. I mean, Parish Episcopal, I wanted to save them for last because I don't know if there's that much to talk about with Parish Episcopal. I mean, they have just been, is there a word that's more than dominant? Because I think that would be Parish Episcopal in taps, because Prestonwood Christian, their biggest opponent, their biggest rival, their biggest, stopgap to winning another state championship, they've destroyed every single time. I mean, is there any possible way that we can see Parish Episcopal not win the TAP state title this year?
Their defense could get them in trouble. That could be their downfall. They have to get back to getting after the quarterback consistently. Now, that was something that they had an issue with early on when the year first started. If they can get back to getting after the quarterback in the playoffs, along with what Maddox Reed is doing at running back, Sawyer Anderson doing what he does at quarterback, he's surgical, so he's going to do what he does.
Yeah.
But they have to win the battle up front and get after the quarterback on the defensive side of the football.
Oh, of course. And I know you had some interesting numbers around Parish Episcopal.
Well, I mean, they lost 49-14 to South Oak Cliff. Okay, and South Oak Cliff did not have their starting quarterback. Granted, it's different style play, bigger school, whatever. But I'm looking at them offensively. Offensively, they're set, right? The ability to have a quarterback that comes in as a freshman and starts after Preston Stone left, the highly touted Preston Stone leaves, and you, as a head coach, say, I'm going to start a freshman. I mean, they have had so much confidence in Sawyer Anderson. They say he's the most humble quarterback, the most accurate pocket passer they have ever had. And I think he can help them go very far. Defense, like we said earlier, defense does win championships, but to have a quarterback like that, I mean, the ability to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage, that's unreal. And for a kid his age to be doing that for that long, that's a veteran quarterback. And that to me is a championship winning team with a veteran quarterback.
And I want to add something too here. I'm looking at the schedule that Parish Episcopal has had, and the teams that they've lost to, they have a combined record of, it's like 21-3 or something like that. They've only had, the team that they've lost to have a combined loss of 3. It's the losses of 3. So it's not like they're losing to bad teams. And Aledo, 50-35 week 1, lost to Episcopal 27-20 week 2. So you go back-to-back losses, bounce back against LBJ Austin, and lose to South Oak Cliff, and then you go on a run here. And so that's just showing some resilience to me, and that's showing that this team knows how to dig itself out of the hole, which oftentimes, and like let's call it how it is, the state championship playoffs, they're not easy. You're going to have to dig yourself out of a hole, especially if you're going to win the championship. You're not just going to be able to walk through every single week, get your win, go home. You're going to have to earn those wins and play from behind sometimes.
And speaking of Austin LBJ, they were in state championship games recently, along with Aledo, along with South Oak Cliff. So they've been a pretty good program themselves. Parish has really played some people. So a lot of that has to do with the defensive struggles. They had to go up against some good offenses in all 3 of those teams, whether it's LBJ, Aledo, or South Oak Cliff.
I think that's a great kind of stopping point for this chasing segment's part of the show. So let's go on to the next segment that we have, which is looking at the top matchups of this week, the game on matchups of the week. Who could be on upset alert? We'll take a look at that in just a moment.